The World Cup is supposed to be that one place where everybody shows up, sings, argues about tactics, and forgets the rest of the planet for 90 minutes. But in reality, it never really works that way. As you know, a lot of things are happening in the world right now. Some really sad and serious things are going on, and when things like that happen, everything gets affected, even football. You see, the World Cup is supposed to be a huge celebration. It is where the whole world comes together. But when there is global tension and chaos, football suffers too. Matches get canceled, national teams pull out. Even some nations that are directly involved in these conflicts have to take a step back. And the reason is very simple. When there is chaos, it is hard to focus on the game. Now, the United States is co-hosting the 2026 World Cup, but it is doing so during a pretty complicated moment at home. Concerns about public safety, political division, immigration debates, and worries about gun violence. All of those are issues that sit in the background of daily life for Americans. But when that country hosts something as massive as the World Cup, those background issues become problems for everyone. Because remember, the World Cup is not just a football tournament. It is one of the biggest global events on the planet. Millions of fans travel, cities organize huge celebrations, and governments have to make sure everything runs smoothly. So, the situation inside the host country always affects how the tournament feels. Maybe that is why there was such a nice vibe around the 2010 World Cup in South Africa. A lot of people imagine that the biggest risk to a major event would be some dramatic incident. But often the real problems are much simpler. Think of something as basic as being late with the preparation for the World Cup. According to some reports, host cities in the United States are worried about delays in the federal funding they expected for security planning. When that happens, cities do not get the money when they expected it. And when cities still do not have the money, their planning slows down. Now, this may sound like a technical problem, but it actually affects the fan experience in a very real way. Think about the things people love during a World Cup that are not even inside the stadium. The massive fan festivals, the giant screens where thousands of people watch matches together, the outdoor concerts, food markets, and big public celebrations. These events are fun, but they are also extremely expensive to secure. And security is a huge issue when people talk about the United States. Because it is hard to talk about the United States without talking about gun violence. This is a sensitive topic, but it is something visitors have to think about. Fans traveling from Europe, Asia, and South America hear about this in the news, but now it becomes part of the conversation because they are traveling to the United States. I mean, look at the terrible events that recently happened in Austin, Texas. When you are hosting an event that brings a huge international crowd together in one place, the authorities have to pay very close attention. Then you have another challenge that keeps coming up, and that is drones. Drones have become cheaper, easier to use, and much more common. Now, most of the time they are harmless. People use them for photography or video. But at a huge global event, these things create security problems. Because of that, governments are investing in technology that can detect and stop unauthorized drones near stadiums or large gatherings. So, in 2026, part of the security planning will not just be about the people, it will also be about the sky above the stadiums. You already know some guy, probably Ferran Torres, is going to sky his penalty and might hit a drone. All of these things create a very interesting challenge for the United States because the country is huge and very decentralized. Cities, states, and federal agencies all have their own roles and responsibilities. Excuse the pun, but this is a country that is very far from united. Meanwhile, the World Cup is a very centralized global event that requires everyone to coordinate perfectly. So the big question for the United States is, can they host this tournament safely? Now, the United States has its own problems, but so does the next host country, Mexico, a host city for the next World Cup. It is very, very, very close to Mexico City. The next matches, obviously, are worried about the next matches in Mexico City. For them, the challenge looks a little different. Mexico is going to host World Cup matches in Guadalajara, Monterrey, and Mexico City. And the tournament will actually kick off in Mexico City with Mexico playing South Africa, a little throwback to one of my favorite World Cups, the 2010 World Cup. Now, compared to the United States, Mexico is going to host fewer matches, but its reputation is judged very harshly. That is because there are a lot of global headlines about the cartel, and once those stories stick in people's minds, they become part of how the country is viewed. I mean, people stereotype Mexico all the time. When you hear its name, it is either tacos or the cartel and drugs. It really is not fair to them. And now, because they are hosting the World Cup, cartel violence is no longer just a background issue. Mexican authorities have already been talking about increasing security in cities like Guadalajara and Monterrey for upcoming World Cup-related matches. Both FIFA and the Mexican government understand that the real test of hosting is not just security inside the stadium. Because the World Cup is not just about guarding a football stadium for 2 hours. It is about protecting the entire journey that fans and teams take. You have to manage transport, travel, and crowd movement across several major cities. So even if the matches still go ahead perfectly, the cultural experience around them might feel limited if the right procedures are not put in place. This leads to another issue that is harder to measure but still important, and that is perception. When a host country is constantly talked about in terms of danger, the story of the tournament changes. Instead of the world saying that Mexico is welcoming everybody, the conversation becomes that Mexico has to prove it can host safely. That is a very different tone. Now, if Mexico is dealing with a trust problem, the situation in the Middle East raises something even more disruptive. What is happening in the Middle East because of the United States is a great example of how global politics can suddenly become part of a World Cup story. The clearest example is Iran and the United States. Iran has already qualified for the 2026 World Cup through Asian qualifying. The United States, as one of the host countries, qualifies automatically, so both teams will be in the playoffs. But the problem is not about these two teams playing in the same competition. The problem is the extremely tense relationship between the two countries outside of football. Things have gotten so bad that there were reports about Iran possibly not participating in the matches played in the United States. Several news reports said that people within Iran's football leadership had expressed doubts about traveling to the United States because of the current conflicts between the two countries. Now, diplomatic relations between these two nations have been strained for decades, but everything has gotten much worse. And when you place the political situation next to a global event like the World Cup, it creates real questions. Because the World Cup is carefully planned years in advance. You have the teams placed into groups, the stadiums booked, the tickets sold. If a team that has already qualified suddenly cannot participate, that creates a huge problem for the entire structure of the tournament. So even the possibility of a team withdrawing creates uncertainty. The second issue is security planning. Whenever international tensions increase, security officials immediately start looking at potential risks around major events. The World Cup brings together massive crowds, international media, and fans from all over the world. Because of that, the authorities have to become even more cautious. Security is probably going to be more visible. There may be stricter screening around the stadiums, tighter monitoring of fan zones, and faster responses to anything that looks out of place. Then there is the issue of fan travel and visas. This is something a lot of people do not always think about, but it has a huge impact on the atmosphere of the World Cup. When a country hosts a tournament, fans from every nation are supposed to be able to travel and support their teams. But immigration policies in the United States right now and visa restrictions can easily make that process super complicated. Iranians, for example, have already had trouble getting visas to enter the United States. That happened to them even before the World Cup. And now I imagine the situation is going to become even more intense because of the global tension between the United States and Iran. Because football is never just about the 22 guys on the field. It is also about the symbols around the match, the flag, the national anthems, how countries present themselves to the world. When millions of people watch the tournament, those images shape global perception. If Iran's participation becomes uncertain because of political tensions, the country may be portrayed internationally as isolated or unstable, even though ordinary Iranian fans and players have nothing to do with the political decision. At the same time, the United States as the host nation could be seen in an incredibly negative way, not just because of what it is doing on the international stage, but also because of all the problems it is facing. Domestically, sports has a way of compressing complicated political issues into simple images that people remember. And when it comes specifically to the United States and Iran, there is an important historical layer to their story. They had already played one of the most politically charged matches in World Cup history at the 1998 World Cup. They faced each other in the group stage, and because of the long political tension between the two countries, that match was seen as more than just a football game. Before kickoff, the Iranian players gave flowers to the American players, and both teams even posed for a joint photo. The match itself was competitive, but it was also remembered as a rare moment of sportsmanship and symbolic diplomacy. That history still shapes how people think about any potential meeting between the two teams. Some see it as an opportunity for football to bring people together. Others see it as a political rivalry that reflects deeper tensions. And some believe it could become a moment of protest or political expression. I mean, if Iran and the United States meet, it is going to be covered everywhere, because football and other major sporting events like the Olympics always become a stage where global politics can play out. And when you look at the tensions surrounding the 2026 tournament, it is simply another reminder that the World Cup is more than a football competition. It is also a mirror of the world at the moment it is played. Every time the world feels unstable, it becomes difficult to organize these massive events. The World Cup means everyone is traveling. You have fans, players, media. If flights are getting canceled, like even my flight was recently canceled because of the problems in the Middle East, then that shows you how big the problem can be. And when people cannot even travel safely, how can the tournament run smoothly? In dark times, football is supposed to be something that brings people together. It is supposed to bring joy, unless you have to watch Garnacho play. But normally, it gives people something to smile about when the world feels heavy. And that is why many people are worried. The World Cup is massive. It is not just another tournament. It is something special that only happens every 4 years. For many players, it is going to be their last one, like Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. Moments like that are historic, and you do not want those moments to be overshadowed by global problems. But at the end of the day, football does not live inside a bubble. It is connected to the real world. It is connected to real people. And when the world is suffering, the game we love feels it too. I just hope that somehow football can still do what it always does, which is bring people together even when everything else feels divided. If you enjoyed this video, I am sure you are going to love this one too. Check it out right here.